Hello and welcome to Janome Stitch Club UK. My name is Julia Langley and I'm one of the educators here in the UK for Janome. And the idea of this Stitch Club is just to get you looking at more of the features, accessories, feet, etc. techniques that you can use on your sewing machines to maybe up your game a little bit. So this month I thought I'd take a look at 1/4 inch feet in particular. Just to have a little look at the options that are out there and that are available, and how else you can get that magical 1/4 inch on your sewing machine. When you're doing projects like this, the 1/4 inch really does matter. You talk to any quilter, there will be a raging debate about how to achieve it, whether you do a 1/4 inch, whether you do a scant. Goodness me, the conversation will go on for hours. I'm just taking a look here at a couple of the options that are available to you on your machines, and the feet, the standard 1/4 inch foot, the metal one, and also I'm going to take a look at this one, the Clear View quilting foot and guide set, which some of you may not know about, and just have a look at how you can actually get that perfect measurement to make all your pieces fit together like magic. So I'm going to turn you around and we'll have a look at the machine. I'm going to look at the 5270 QDC first, which is a 7mm model, and then I'm going to go on to my atelier so I can show you a couple of the other features that you get on some of the bigger models. So let's have a look at the 1/4 inch options that you've got on. This is the 5270 QDC, so it's a 7mm for the stitch width going on here on this machine. When you actually turn your machine on, it comes up with your serving suggestion. This is our straight stitch, so this is the automatic one it's going to go on to. And as you can see, we've got 3.5. Now this is what I always term as the wobbly width. And what that's basically meaning is that on a 7mm machine, your needle position is here, slap bang in the middle, 3.5mm. Okay, so if we take the F foot, for example, which has got the full gap here, and pop this one on, and I used this method for years and years before I actually had a 1/4 inch foot, and even when I did have a 1/4 inch foot, actually, I was already in the habit of doing this. So 3.5 is in the middle. That is going to be way too wide for what we want. We need to get it over to the 1/4 inch. So what I'm actually looking for is I need the needle to be here on my 1/4 inch line, and the way to do that is to use this wobbly width setting, and I'm going to move it across. I think you can see the needle moving, and I'm going to take it across to 6. And then I'm going to stitch along the edge of this as if it was my patchwork seam. I'm doing a dark colour on white so that hopefully you can see. So I'm keeping the side of my foot completely flush to the side of my fabric. Okay, so now what I want to do, just move these out of the way, is that once again take my ruler and then see how we're fixed, and that is giving me, what I'm liking about this is it's giving me the 1/4 inch, and it is actually sitting, and hang on, let me get my glasses on. Yep, it's actually sitting just the other side of the yellow line. Okay, now if you prefer what is known as a scant 1/4 inch, you can move it again. So for a scant, I would be looking at 6.5 and take that over so it's just sitting a little bit further over. The scant 1/4 inch basically it's one of those things. Some people prefer it, especially if you're working with much smaller pieces. It basically gives you another couple of millimeters, so when you press your seam to the side, what often happens is the bulk of fabric sort of eats into your seam allowance. So by making it very slightly smaller, as I have done here, the aim, sorry, you just probably got my head in the picture there, but the aim is to actually bring it very slightly in, so we're about 2 millimeters inside. It's on 6.5. So that is personal choice, whether you go with your regular quarter or you go with the scant. Maybe it will depend. Some patterns will actually tell you to use a scant 1/4 inch. Now the important thing though with this machine, and anyone who ever quilts will tell you, is consistency is key. So whatever you use, you need to use that all the time. So if I'm doing a load of pieces during, you know, a session on my sewing machine, when this one gets switched off, it's not going to recall the stitch for me. So I need to make sure that I remember the next time I put the machine on that I reposition that needle again. Okay, because on this particular model and on many other models you don't have that capability, so you need to remember. So I'm afraid I'm a post-it note girl. A post-it note would go on the front of the machine. Good old post-it notes, where would we be without it? So when I finish that project, I would just whack a post-it note on the front of the machine to remind me that when I next sit down at the machine, I need to make this change again. Okay, because what you don't want is to do 50 half square triangles and then realize that you forgot to change your needle position and all the seams are going to be wrong, because that's a lot of unpicking that you do not want to do. So that is just using the F foot, and as I say, most machines will have that. A lot of these, anything that is computerized will have the capability to move the needle, and some of them mechanized ones as well. So that is a way of getting to that 1/4 inch. Many machines also will come with an actual 1/4 inch foot, the O foot, which is, if I compare, it's narrower than your regular foot, and it also has this lip on the edge of it. And the idea of the lip is that it will run nicely along the edge of your fabric. Now with this one, I don't need to change my needle position because this foot is narrower. I can just go with the ordinary needle position. So when the needle position is in the center position, that's going to give me my 1/4 inch. If I want the scant, there is just room within this opening here for, again, me to move it over, and if you take it to 4.5, that will give you a scant 1/4 inch. Okay, so this one is great because obviously that lip kind of keeps it keeps you from shifting the fabric, to be honest, which is why a lot of people like it. So I've drawn my line to do half square triangle, so I'm running that lip along the center, that line that I've just drawn. So that I can get that nice and neat. If you find that you don't like, and this really is going to be personal choice, some people do not like having the lip on the side. The answer to that is the Clear View quilting foot, and this little set, oh, here we go. Obviously the clue is in the name. It's a clear foot rather than metal, And the actual foot itself does not have a lip on it until you unscrew and then add the lip. And there are two options. You can either put the lip on here to give you the 1/4 inch, or there is another bar which you can add, which sits in the center, so that will give you your ditch. Okay, so if you're stitching along the ditch of something, then you've got both of those options. The other thing about this foot is I've put the bar in the center, the ditch foot here, and you'll notice I've moved the needle over because there's another hole here. And if I take my needle position all the way over to 0, so it's as far over to the left as it will go, the needle will go in that single hole there. So I'm just going to sew along now, again keeping that bar running along the edge there. And what that gives me is a perfect 1/8 of an inch seam. Okay, so this foot here actually is going to give you all kinds of different options. You've got your 1/8 of an inch, you've got your ditch, stitch in the ditch. You've also got the 1/4 inch option with or without the bar. My preferred option is usually to have neither, because I like being able to really see what I'm doing. So if we pop that one onto the machine, and I'll show you what I mean. The other thing that I think it really comes into its own is when you're doing things like the half square triangles and flying geese. Now for this particular technique, where I'm going to make, let me come back out so you can kind of see the whole of the thing. I'm going to do the method where you make 4 at a time, and so there's absolutely no waste. Love this method. But I've drawn my line through the center, and I'm now going to stitch 1/4 of an inch from this drawn line. Now if I had a lip, that's not going to help me. In fact, I think at that point the lip hinders, doesn't it? So this foot is now going to really come into its own here, because I can just line that up and off we go. Always go slow at the start. You can lift your tails at the end and hold those as well. All little sort of ways of just making it easier. Just don't rush it. I often find with patchwork, particularly these sorts of blocks and techniques, it all goes pear-shaped as soon as you start rushing it. You think they're going to be a really quick, you know, oh yeah, great, I can carry on doing that. So I'm not cutting my threads. I've pulled out at the end so that I have got that tail. I can now turn it round and now run down the other side. I'll just keep my hand on those tails. When it starts, there we go. And then what you do is you cut on the actual drawn line through the center. If you look online, there are usually quite a lot of things that do what they call cheat sheets, which I've got one here. I've had this for absolutely years, where it gives me all the sizes to get the finished flying geese, and it gives you the minimal waste method 4 at a time, which I'm doing here, and also 1 goose at a time in case you're doing something a bit more scrappy. This is where I've just moved the camera without even knowing it. So press those geese up to the top, and then once you've done that, the next one goes on, and it goes on this way. And it's always important, they should always overrun
so that you get that. I'll show you when we're finished, but you do get that 1/4 inch at the end as well. So here we go. So again, I'm just going to hold my tails for the start there. Turn it and go down the other side. Take those out and once again cut through the center. And then again press those. So what you've got here at the top is where they've crossed over, that's your 1/4 inch, so that as you go and then sew them together, so if I were, I'm not going to do that for this particular pattern, but on this side I've got my 1/4 inch is here, so as I sew down there I'm going to make sure I get those points nice and neat. And as I say, not having the lip at this stage is really helpful for these parts of the process. When you're actually doing piecing squares and things like that and sashing rectangles, then having the lip is great. But when you're actually doing this 1/4 inch process kind of in the middle of a process, if that makes sense, then that's when it comes into its own. So this one, if you don't have a 1/4 inch foot, then this might be worth looking at because it gives you both options. You can have it with the lip or without the lip. So that's just having a little look at one of my favorite feet. That's one of my top recommendations. So to move on to the Atelier, because I wanted to show different screen, different ways of doing things on other machines. So on this machine I've now got a 9mm stitch width, so 4.5 is the center position. So I can do the same thing as on the other machine, where I can actually move my needle position, get it into the right place. The difference is here I can actually save it if I want to. So if I were to move it across, and I would normally do 8.3 on here. Find my scamp, there we go. So I've got that there, but down here I've got my favorite stitch setting, so I can save it, put it in my little folder, and there you go, you can see it's yellow, so that's now saved, which means that every time I put this machine on, switch it on and go on to that first straight stitch, it's going to automatically give me a 1/4 inch. So if patchwork is your thing, you may as well do that, because the chances are that's what you're going to be stitching most of the time. There are other options though. So if I go into my little t-shirt and go through to patchwork, I've got my settings here, and what it's doing, it's automatically going to move that for me to 8.3, and it's also doing that same thing. It's taking the stitch length down to 1.8, and it's telling me to use the O foot, which on this machine is this one. Now you can also get, they've started doing them quite recently, the O foot without the lip as well. That's on my list of things to get at Festival of Quilts this year. So if you don't like the lip, then you can certainly get a metal foot, but you can get one without the lip. I'll put the code for that down in the description below. You've also got the same option, the clear view, the one I showed you previously, as a foot as well. So that's one option of getting into it, by going through that. You've also got in your quilt section here, if we go into it, you've got, look, all these things with P next to them. So on this section I could set my, it's taken the stitch length down here at the moment, that the needle position is in the center, but I could do my 1/4 inch and save it for that first stitch there. Or look, I just press that and it takes it over to the 8.3, so I'm on the 1/4 inch there. We've also got the 7mm option, which is millimeters rather than inches. I've got to say to you, I have never once done a patchwork pattern in millimeters or centimeters. I once had to translate one of my patterns for somebody in France. It took me an extremely long time because it wasn't quite as simple as you think it's going to be. So I'm just going to stick with this one here, frankly. So that's another option.
As usual, a fair bit, and just touching the tip of the iceberg, I need to head off and finish my summer runner with my flying geese, which of course will all be perfect 1/4 inches. We'll see about that. And as I say, if you haven't already got a 1/4 inch foot, you might want to take a look at this set, because it will give you the ditch and the 1/4 inch as well. And I'm off to go and purchase myself the O-foot without the lip for my atelier, which has been on my little tick list of things to get. And I hope that's helpful. Any questions, as per usual, about your model and what's available, etc., pop them in the comments below and I will get back to you. I've also included the actual reference numbers for the feet that I've been mentioning throughout the video. So hope that helps. See you next time.